It was revealed recently that presidential candidate RFK Jr. has a dead worm in his head that ate part of his brain. Now he's saying that he could eat 5 or 6 brain worms and still win the 2024 election. To which we all have to ask, in what world was RFK Jr. ever going to become our next president, with or without the brain damage and the brain worms?
He is nuts and clearly disturbed. The Standard. He's angry, Vanity Fair. His own family hates him. The New York Post. He sounds like he's transmitting from another galaxy. He is so crazy, the New York Post. Kennedy is a humorless bully living in a paranoid fantasy, Vanity Fair. What the is wrong with Bobby Kennedy?
So if you haven't heard about this, the New York Times recently reported that back in 2010, Kennedy allegedly had a parasite in his brain. The parasite ate part of Kennedy's brain and then died. This all became somewhat public information 2 years later when Kennedy was going through a divorce. He alleged at the time that he had suffered brain damage, which negatively affected his earning potential, which I guess meant that he wouldn't be able to pay as much money to his ex-wife. Functionally, he was suffering from memory loss, which doctors are now saying could have been more likely caused by the mercury poisoning he was also dealing with at the time. He was eating so much tuna that his mercury levels were 10 times what the EPA says is tolerable. Anyway, who cares? If this presidential candidate has brain damage, whether from a brain worm or from too much tuna, he's not on those grounds any better or worse than the other 2 candidates we've already got. But as fun as this story is, in typical 2024 presidential election fashion, Kennedy has decided to take control of the narrative, writing on X, quote, "I offer to eat 5 more brain worms and still beat President Trump and President Biden in a debate." He then followed that up saying, quote, "I feel confident of the result even with a 6-worm handicap." Then Elon Musk offered to host the debate on X with Tucker Carlson moderating. We are so unserious. I honestly don't know how we're going to make it to November. I'm already so exhausted, so exasperated, so disappointed that this is where we are as a nation. But in other RFK Jr. news, Trump seems to be taking the Kennedy threat somewhat seriously. He released a video of himself attacking Kennedy's running mate, Nicole Shanahan, calling her a liberal and a gold digger. Whoa. And in a weird way, Trump seemed to endorse Biden for president, which is certainly a first.
I'd even take Biden over Jr. because our country would last about a year or 2 longer than it would with Jr. It would collapse almost immediately, and his family, a radical left, a crazy left, a bunch of lunatics, would take over, and our country will die very quickly. So RFK's views on vaccines are fake, as is everything else about his candidacy. He is not a Republican, so don't think you're going to vote for him and feel good. He's a radical left Democrat. Let the Democrats have RFK Jr. They deserve him.
So obviously he wants to split the vote between Biden and Kennedy rather than between himself and Kennedy, the latter of which is more likely. An NBC poll found that Kennedy was detracting more votes from Trump than he was from Biden. Still, all hope is not lost for Trump. Poll results are snapshots at best, and things can flip in an instant. For example, a significant portion of would-be or former Biden supporters are so disappointed in him that the idea of voting for him again is difficult to contend with. Fortunately for someone, because who really wins here, those people are probably more likely to just not vote in the November election at all, just sit it out entirely, rather than vote for either Kennedy or Trump instead. Also, Kennedy recently attempted to clarify his position as a pro-choice candidate. However, his clarifications seem to do more to confuse his running mate and his campaign. For her part, Shanahan wrote on X that she is personally both pro-life and pro-choice, in the sense, I believe, that most pro-choice women actually are. Most pro-choice women aren't just getting pregnant and aborting babies all day long. Most of us would never willfully choose to abort a baby unless it was absolutely unavoidable. So that's nice, even though technically Joe Biden is also a pro-choice candidate, regardless of the fact that women actually lost their right to choose during his presidency. And I know, it's not entirely his fault that that happened, but forgive me if I'm a little bit bitter. We're still in the same position we were always in, with the women of this country desperately waiting for some old white man to recognize them as autonomous human beings capable of making decisions for themselves. Anyway, bottom line, Kennedy doesn't support any legislation banning abortion. We've got a long way to go till November. And we all know that once the election is done, the craziness won't be done, because if Trump loses, he's going to fight the result and he won't shut up about it, and his supporters won't shut up about it. But in the 6 months between now and then, a lot can happen. Maybe Trump will be in jail by then. Doubtful, but maybe. Maybe he'll have finally figured out a way to flee this country that he would supposedly sacrifice everything for. Maybe Biden will have won back enough goodwill from the people to encourage more of his 2020 supporters to turn out to the polls and vote for him. And maybe Kennedy will have eaten some brainworms. I don't know. All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and check out my podcast, Modern Context. Thanks.